It's time to go forward. I am Derrick Day, and this is another episode of the Forward Podcast. And normally I do these Sunday morning in the morning, but this week my buddy Carl Forehand was conducting a conference, an online conference, a webinar that basically it was the for a second uh, into the desert. And so there were some really awesome speakers: Jason Elam, Carl Butler, Keith Giles, um, many others that were involved in that, and it was a really good thing. So I wanted to make sure that I listened to that, participated in that, and got all I could from that, because there were some really interesting speakers, and it wasn't there's some that they're still in the Christian paradigm, but there's some people that are not, and it was a good mix of speakers, and all of them were really good. And I took away something from everyone. So I want to give a shout out to Carl and Laura Forehand for conducting that awesome seminar or conference or webinar. Don't know exactly what you call it, but it was awesome. And they're going to do it again soon. So stay tuned to Carl Forehand's page for more information. But today, I want to talk about a smart life or smart living. And this is the thing about smart living. I mean, we have all of this technology now. We have smartphones, smart watches, smart TVs, smart appliances, smart cars, all of these smart devices that are designed to help us live better. But the problem is that when you have smart devices, you need to also have a smart governance policy around the technology, because otherwise the technology will kind of run away from you. And you have to have something that kind of circumscribes that and keeps it all in check. But the other thing too is that you have to have a smart life. And what do I mean by that? Uh, there is a management paradigm, and it's called SMART goals. And SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound goals. And I'm going to start with specific because you got to get specific. I'll tell you something. There are too many people who are living accidental lives looking for intentional results. Let me say that again. There are too many people that are living accidental lives looking for intentional results. In other words, you want something to happen, you want a specific outcome, but you are not focused. You're not pointing in that direction. You're not, it's like basically ready, fire, aim. And unfortunately, that's the way a lot of people live. So you got to get specific. And listen, if you are going nowhere, every road will take you there. So the first thing, getting specific. What do I want to achieve? What do I want to achieve? What is the desired outcome that I'm looking for? What is it that I'm expecting to happen through the result of this paradigm? Okay, or the application of this paradigm. So we have to get specific. We have to know exactly what it is that we're trying to achieve. We have to know exactly where we're going, and put something in place to create a, a space of specificity. I was trying to find the word and I just really couldn't. But again, be specific. You're not going to get an intentional result from accidental choices. So if you want to, if there's a career path that you want to get into, then you have to find out what does it take to get into this career path. What do I need to know? Who do I need to know? What are the applications for this particular technological space or intellectual space, and find out how can you get into that and maximize your potential within that space. So you have to be very focused. Being specific means focus. I'm moving in a direction. I'm not leaving it to chance. I am focused. I am operating by purpose, by design to achieve a specific result. The second thing is measurable. Listen, I believe, and me and my kids just had a conversation about this because we were putting something together, and I was telling the principle of measure twice, cut once. Because if you measure twice and cut once, you basically have your measurement intact before you actually start cutting, before you start doing the preparation prior to the build. And nobody builds anything of any substance without measuring, right? And measurement is so important because one of the things that measurement does is it creates the possibility of a repeatable process. Okay. When we do things, if you achieve some measure of success, you should know enough about it that you can share this with others in such a way that if they apply these principles within the same parameters that you operated in, then they should get the same result. But you cannot get a repeatable result without first making it measurable. If you don't know what the time that it's going to take, what the cost is going to be, what the people involved are going to be, what all of these things, if you don't know the dimensions of a thing, again, what you're going to wind up with is doing something accidental with the expectation of producing something intentional, and it's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. I mean, I can't say enough about this. And here's the other thing too, is that when we talk about living, a smart life is also one. I said everything has to be tangible, measurable, and repeatable. And that's off the smart plantation or the smart reservation, but it applies in the same way. If what you're doing is not tangible, if in other words, if it's not something that you can perceive the result. And this is one of the areas where we get in trouble because nowadays there are a lot of people that are trying to they're trying to spiritualize their lives, or they're trying to increase or enhance their spirituality. And I don't have a problem with spirituality per se, but what I do have a problem with is when you try to make a logical assessment from something that cannot be logically discerned. And if it can't be measured, then it's not it's not tangible, it's not repeatable. And what happens then is you have something, because people will say, well, I did this and it worked for me. Well, that's great if it worked for you. But again, true success, and you can write this down, true success is not simply you succeeding, because I'll tell you something, I have achieved a great deal of success in my life. I have done things. I've been places. I've been at the table with great people and all of that. But the catch is, it's not all about me and what I'm able to do. I'm only successful to the degree that I'm able to help someone else succeed. I can't stress that enough, because the thing is, we get caught up in me. And I talked in this, or I did a talk on this a couple of weeks ago, why I said selfishness in and of itself is not bad. You have to get things for yourself. You have to achieve things for yourself. You have to put the oxygen mask on your face before assisting others. If you don't get it, nobody else, you're not gonna be in any position to help anyone else get it. Okay. But if you the thing is, you want to be in a position that when you succeed, that you're able to drive key performance indicators for others that enable them to succeed. And so when we talk about this in management, in corporate America or global corporate spaces, that the objective is not simply to have the individual succeed, but to have the entire team succeed, because the entire team succeeding will mean that the company succeeds. And as the company applies its practices to other customers, then the customers succeed. You follow what I'm saying? What we're doing is we're creating a paradigm for success that is repeatable across the board. But it can't happen without having something measurable. You cannot, I'm going to sound like a broken record or a drum on repeat, a drum machine on repeat. Basically, you will not get an intentional result from accidental effort. It's just not going to happen. So the third thing, the attainable, it's great to dream the impossible dream. It's great to have lofty goals. It really is. But if you have lofty goals, if you want to do something that's truly world changing, truly extraordinary, truly paradigm busting, then what you need to do is you need to devise a stepwise approach to getting there. So you have baby steps that get you from here to there. Because if you just say, I'm going to do this, right? There's an old African proverb, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. If you try to swallow the elephant whole, you're going to die. It's one of those things that just doesn't work. So whatever is attainable, and here's the thing, almost anything is attainable given a sufficiently long timeline and sufficient resources. So if you have the right amount of time and the right resources, almost anything is attainable. But the thing is that you have to put together a plan and say, okay, I know that I can't attain all of this at once, but what is my stepwise approach? What is my micro approach to this macro result? Okay. And so that's how we get to the attainable. But what I want to say, and I want to make this very clear, don't stop dreaming simply because what your goal is may not be attainable right now. If it's not attainable in the right now, or if it's not attainable in the short term, then start crafting a long-term strategy. And listen, right now we live in the information age, and there are tools available. You can get an Excel spreadsheet. You can have Smartsheet or any number of things, any number of tools that you can use to actually program out what your goal is. And you can see what the steps are to the attainability of that goal. Because again, given a sufficiently long timeline and sufficient resources, virtually anything is attainable. Okay. The R, relevant. Relevant. Here's the thing. Now we're in a time where electric cars, electric vehicles are sexy. That people are actually electric cars are aspirational objects, but that wasn't always the case. The 20 years ago, the electric car was not relevant. General Motors produced a really fantastic electric car called the EV1, and they didn't sell it to anybody. They leased them out, and everybody that had them loved them. They thought that this was really incredible. It had decent range. It was fast, and it was actually an attractive looking car. But the thing is that there was no market for the car. So it wasn't relevant. Even though it was good, it wasn't relevant. So here's the thing. You may have a fantastic idea, but you'll wonder, why can't I sell this idea? Why can't I get this idea in front of people? You have to ask yourself, is this relevant? Is this relevant? For example, around the turn of the 20th century, people became obsessed with building automobiles. And there were still some wagon and buggy manufacturers that were still trying to increase their market share. The problem was that the paradigm was shifting to the internal combustion engine powered vehicles. And now the horse-drawn carriages were losing favor. And true story, that the one horse carriage manufacturer that got it right was a company called Studebaker. Studebaker was one of the most successful wagon and carriage manufacturers in the 1800s. But they saw the writing on the wall and they began to switch their focus, their engineering focus, from horse-drawn vehicles to gas-powered vehicles. And as a result, Studebaker, if I'm not mistaken, Studebaker was the only company that survived the transition between the horse-drawn vehicles and gas-powered vehicles. But even that, Studebaker died at the end of the 1960s because they failed to transition their business paradigm to what the rest of the consumers were looking for. It's like things like, the longer, lower, wider that was being pioneered by General Motors. It had been adopted by Ford and to a lesser degree by Chrysler, and even American Motors kind of get in on it. But Studebaker just couldn't actually get it, even though their cars were well made, well engineered. They didn't survive because they survived one paradigm shift, but they didn't survive the second one. So the thing is that you have to make sure that your idea, whatever it is that you're trying to do, that it is relevant. And one of the things that we suffer from is that we have an idea and we think that the idea is good, and the idea may be well thought out, it may be well engineered, it may be well conceived, it may be well designed, all of these things, but because it has no relevance, it doesn't resonate with people, and people don't buy it. And what happens is then you, as an idea broker or a corporation, you die. So you have to make sure that what you're doing is relevant. And finally, time bound. Listen, everything has an expiration date. Everything. We are born and we die. So there is a finite number of days between your entry into the earth and your exit from it. Likewise, there is a timeline between the time that an idea is relevant to the time that it is not. And so you have to program your timeline to take advantage of the factor of relevance. You have to also consider in your timeline in the measurability, because when you're measuring and to produce a thing, whether it be a product or a service, there's also a time factor. How long is it going to take to produce this thing? How long is it going to take to implement this thing? And how long is the service life of this thing? And all of that has to be taken into consideration. And I'll tell you, if you don't have, if you don't understand the value of time, it's going to be difficult for you. And I tell people all the time that the most valuable thing, the most valuable commodity at anyone's disposal is 1 second. And if you don't believe me, ask an Olympic sprinter, ask an Olympic swimmer, ask a race car driver, ask a drug manufacturer. That 1 second, because here's the thing, if I want to give you my chain, I can say, hey, you can borrow this, and you can say, hey, I'll give it back when I'm done, and I can get it back. I can lend you my shirt and you can agree to give it back. I can lend you money and you can agree to give it back. But once I have invested 1 second of time with you, that is 1 second of my life that is gone. You cannot replace it. And people always talk about redeeming the time. That is complete and total bullshit. Once time is gone, it is gone. When that 1 second is spent, it is spent. And that's why I'm a firm believer in being a good steward of other people's time. I'm not the most punctual person. I'll be honest, but because of that, because I understand I'm not the most punctual person, I'll program my days so that when I have a meeting, I'm there 5 minutes beforehand or 10 minutes beforehand. I forget who it was, and I want to ascribe this. I want to actually ascribe this to William Durant, who was the CEO of General Motors, or well, one of the founders of General Motors. But he basically said that if you're on time for a meeting, you're late. You're late because the time and there's a time value of money there. If you go out and just do a search on something like the Rule of 72, and you'll find out what the time value of money is, that there is a dollar cost to time, or a dollar value of time. And if you violate that, what happens is that any financial investment that you have fails because the time constraint was not met. That's why you have certificates of deposit that are like 30, 60, 90 days. You have different investments that are time bound, and this time is, I can't stress how important that is. This time factor is super duper critical. And here's the thing: we are actually eternal beings. In other words, our energy, because energy is neither created nor destroyed, our energy has always existed and it always will exist. So our energy really doesn't have a timeline per se, but this three-dimensional body that our spirit occupies, that energy occupies, that actually is measured and governed by time. So you have to make sure that that what you're doing, that is time bound, and that you are respecting not only your time, maximizing your time, but also the time of others. This is absolutely key. Okay. So that is pretty much it. That's what smart is all about. And honestly, you want to live a smart life. You want to make sure that what you're doing, everything that you do, everything that you set your mind, your attention, your affection to, that it is specific. Let me say this too, like about relationships, right? That if you are not focused on the person you're in relationship with, and I'm not just talking about like intimate relationships or sexual relationships, I'm talking about business relationships, I'm talking about friendships, I'm talking about neighbors, all of these things, that when you are, and there's a certain aspect to specificity that ties to mindfulness. And my friend Aaron Tomlinson has a really good teaching on mindfulness. You have to really check it out. But the thing is that when you being mindful allows you to be focused. It's the concept of being here now. In other words, that while I'm with you, I'm not mentally with someone else. I'm focused. I'm specific. Right. And so if you're not specific, what will happen is you'll have your space being occupied with another, but your time, your mentality will be off with someone else, and you're not focused. And when you're not focused, you will fail. Right. So you got to start with being specific. And I'm going to say something else too, that you cannot, and you can write this down, you cannot be specific about anything if you don't first know yourself. Knowing yourself is the first step in understanding your why. It's the first step in understanding specificity. It's understanding all of these things. You have to know you. And I'll tell you something else. Not only do you have to know you, but you have to love you. You have to have empathy and compassion for you. You can't beat yourself up. You can't put yourself down. You cannot be your worst detractor. You have to be your greatest cheerleader. Right? And that is, you have to really love yourself. But the last and most important thing is that you got to like yourself. I'll tell you something about me. I not only love me some me, but I like me. I like being around me more than I like being around anyone else. I enjoy my company more than I enjoy anyone else's. I like me some me. And because of that, I am able to focus because my attention and affection is not torn up by my own misunderstandings of myself. I love me. I have empathy and compassion for me, but I like me. I think me is awesome. I really think Derrick is awesome, but that's me. Your mileage may vary. So, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor up for questions, see if anybody wants to talk about this. And if you do, feel free to join in. I'm putting the link out here now. And I have to do this in 2 steps because for some reason, when I do it through my little uh, streaming tool, it only does it on YouTube. So I have to actually go back and go into Facebook manually and put the link in here. So I am going to put this here. Bear with me. Technology. Pasting from my MacBook to my iPhone. See, that's smart functionality. and you have to be smart enough to use the functionality. See, that's the other thing too. You can have all the tools and technologies that's available, but you have to make smart use of them. You have to be intelligent. So anyway, if you want to join in, here is the link. And boom shakalaka. So you can join in and tell me what you think about SMART goals or smart living and how you're applying SMART goals and smart living to your life, because I'd like to know. And even if you decide not to join in and be a part of the actual Forward podcast, you can always enter in something in the chat, and then we can talk about it a little bit later. Another thing too, I want to put this out here. Let me type this here. My email address is contact. Oh, that's contact, not contract. At derrickday.com. So if you go to contact.derrickday.com, oh, and I gotta do this again. Oh, hang on, because this restream is funny. It doesn't. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay, I just put it up there. So now it's on the screen. So there you go. So you can send me an email, and if there's some topic that you want me to take on in the podcast, I'd love to hear from you and tell me not only what subject it is, but why you want me to take on that subject, and I'd be glad to do it. The only thing is that I'm going to say is that if it's religious or political, I'm not going to fuck with it. It's simple. In this particular podcast, in this venue, no, I'm not. These are everything in the Forward podcast are things that are specifically designed to help you have a better, more impactful, more insightful, and more meaningful life. Okay, that's what this podcast is all about. So anyway, the text is out there. You feel free to click the link, and if you want to join in, you can join in. And if you don't, that's cool too. And in case you're wondering, I'm drinking an old fashioned, but I'm drinking it from a mix. And I'll be honest, this mix sucks. I'm totally disappointed. And when I get up from here, I hate to do this. I'm gonna throw away some good Uncle Nearest bourbon, but I got to get rid of this because I mean, while it is cool and refreshing, it is not very tasty. And one of the things that I don't do, I don't believe in busting anybody out publicly. So I'm not going to tell you what brand of old fashioned mix this is. I'm just going to tell you it sucks. That's all. So be careful with mixes. That's all I'll say. So that's it. I'm gonna hang on for a second, but if you want to join in, feel free to join in. Let me go back here and go through some of the comments too, because I saw some comments and some of the stuff was actually really good. Ben Urban says you got to have drawing power. He says we exist in time and space, so we must make the most of our time and our space. That's great. And then he says, until we invent a flux capacitor, we got to keep moving forward while focusing on our present circumstances and and experiences. That's great. C. Rodriguez says time is a great storyteller. That might be the comment of the show right there. Ben Urban also says, be attentive to the one you're with. The Isley Brothers made a great song about that. If you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with. And in order to do that, you have to be attentive to, mindful of, and specifically focused on the one you're with. And then Ben Urban also says, self-love, self-care, self-confidence, and self-education are the winning combination. Self-like is essential too. I can't say enough about self-like. If you don't like yourself, man, people say life is short. I'm gonna tell you something. When you don't have self-like, life is long and hard. So it looks like that's it. Nobody's joining in. So we're at the bottom of the hour. Good time. Thank you for joining in. Aaron is going to be on vacation for the next 2 weeks. We're going to take this coming Friday off. I'm trying to work on getting us some guests for the following week, and then after 2 weeks, Aaron will be back, and we'll be back in the saddle, and we're going to continue to raise hell. And also make sure that you check out the Heretic Happy Hour. If you're into that whole theological thing, that's a good place to get it, because you'll get something that's not in the theological mainstream. And I'm all for that. I'm there for it. So let's see, what we got here? We got somebody said something here. C. Rodriguez said, thanks. Thank you, C. It's good to see you. And please tell me if I'm not pronouncing that right. Okay. That's what it looks like. But if I'm wrong, I want to make sure that I get it right. So if there's nothing else, I'm going to go ahead and check out, get back to my drinking and my dinner, and may you be happy, may you be well, may you be filled with peace. Holler at you later.